Okay, so in the last video we added a turn to this move around method, and we got both the scratch crab, I guess it is, and the greenfoot lobster moving, but they're just moving in a circle. They're not moving randomly yet. So we want to add some random motion. So in Scratch, what I mentioned was there's this pick random block that has these round edges, and if you notice, the place where you put an argument into this call to the turn block also has rounded edges. So that means that this fits nicely in here. Now, when you call pick a random number, what it does is it just picks a random number between 1 and 10. And the random number could be 1, it could be 10, or it could be any number in between. All right. So if we put that one in here, and now what happens is it's going to pick a random number between 1 and 10, and then it's going to turn by that amount. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Not terribly interesting. Let's take a look back at the greenfoot. What do they say? They say they're going to get a random number, and they have 90 as the argument. So what does that mean? Let's take a look at the greenfoot docs for get random number. So this is in the greenfoot class. Get random number. And this returns a random number between 0 inclusive and limit exclusive. So that means that 0 could be one of the numbers, and limit, let's say if limit is 4, then 4 would be excluded because it's exclusive. So the possible numbers you could get, if you put in an argument of 4 here, the possible numbers you could get back would be 0, 1, 2, or 3. Right? That gives, in other words, there's 4 numbers you could get back, but because 0 is one of them, then 4 gets bumped off the end. So it's 0, 1, 2, and 3. So if the limit is 4, it's 0, 1, 2, 3. If the limit is 3, it's 0, 1, 2, and so on. And notice this returns an integer. So it is going to give you, so think about this when it says it's returning an integer, as this is a block with one of those rounded edges, like pick random, right? It has the rounded edges. Since it returns an integer, it's going to pick one of those numbers, and then that means we could use this wherever we would use an integer. So just like we could stick pick random in here, we can stick that get random number in here. Okay, and that one last thing to remember here is that this is a static method, so we have to say greenfoot in front of it. So we're going to type greenfoot dot get random number, and the argument is 90 because we can add an integer in here, and that's what they ask us to do in the example here in the tutorial, is to say 90. So let's try it. Let's try it first in greenfoot with 90. So now the randomness is 90. See what that looks like. Oh, okay, that's still kind of weird looking. So we haven't done everything that we need to do to make it interesting. But let's get that going in Scratch real quick here. So in Scratch, when it says pick random, it could be actually a 1, anything between 1 and 10, including 1 and 10. So to get a number from 0 to 90 in Scratch, you put in a 0 here, but instead of a 90, because really we're just picking the numbers up to 89, right? You put in an 89. So we need slightly different arguments here. We actually need 2 arguments instead of 1. So with in Greenfoot here, we just need the 1 argument, the ending limit. And the other difference is that the last number is included in the Scratch version. But anyway, let's return this guy to 0, 0. And 90. And let's try it. Okay, looks like he's getting pretty dizzy there, but so in the next video we'll look at the next step in the tutorial and figure out how to implement that in both Scratch and Greenfoot.